Welcome back to another thrilling episode of It's Almost the Weekend, the Pokemon Haters podcast.
Yeah, this is the Pokemon hate cast, and
Yeah.
sometimes we talk about other things.
Yeah. My name's Joe.
I'm Daz, and dude, it's a beautiful sunny day where I am. How are things where you are, and how are you?
Yeah, things are beautiful and sunny here as well. It's like, what is it right now? 13 degrees, no clouds in the sky. I was actually like on a chore, what would you call it, rampage before I jumped on the call. I was like running around. I descaled the coffee machine,
Oh,
which is like months overdue, when it like comes up and it's like descale me, and then you just never do it because it can't be that serious. Surely it's got some more time before it starts being completely disgusting. So,
did
and then
you
I like,
did you have a soundtrack to your rampage?
no, I didn't. I did it in complete silence.
That sounds quite intimidating.
Yeah, yeah, just the cold, dead, look of a killer white. What do you call it? A great white shark. While I like brush the cobwebs from the edges of the house. And then I was like, I'm gonna have to buy a pressure cleaner to like, because it's filthy. The house is covered in dust, just because we live near like, we live in like a new estate, right? And so there's like construction happening all the time, everywhere around us, and as a
Right.
result, there's just like dust, dirt in the air.
Yeah, yeah.
Not all the time, but just like, even if they did it once a year, it would be enough to be like, oh, the house is filthy, but they do it like, once a month. So it's
Yeah,
just,
yeah. Dust City.
yeah. Yeah. And then I was like, how domesticated am I that I'm thinking about buying a pressure cleaner just for the express purpose of washing the house?
I mean, I love that kind of stuff. As you get older, there's just this like threshold that you pass over, and
Mm,
suddenly vacuum cleaners and kitchen utensils, like all this stuff becomes exciting. And
yeah.
it's not even like a shame-filled excitement. It's just a genuine, oh man, that carpet's gonna be so fluffy and free of debris. I
Yeah.
cannot wait.
Yeah, I'm looking at my debris-laden carpet right now, and I'm very excited to smash it with the vacuum later. We got one of those like stick vacuums, not the Dyson, but sort of the cheaper version of the Dyson that effectively is the same almost.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that was a thrilling purchase, I tell you what.
Oh man. Yeah, so this is a podcast about video games.
I listened to this other podcast. It's called Filthy Casual. Shout out to the boys, and they they're worse than us. They spend like 45 minutes at the beginning just chatting. Like they
Oh,
never get to the video games, and
I
so it's
love
become
that.
like a meme.
That's what I'm about. I'm about,
Yeah.
like the podcasts where you switch them on and it just feels like you're grabbing a beer with friends. They're
Yes, yes,
they're my
yes.
favorite kind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that sort of like I love it as well when you feel like you want to chip in. That feeling of like
Mm,
it's my turn to speak now. I'm ready to like say what I've been doing for the week. Like that is if we can bring that energy, then I'm very excited by that.
bro, we're bringing that energy. I can see you in your house with like
Hmm.
a deep frown, shaking out coffee grains in absolute silence. It's
Yes.
I've got quite the image.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I've got the flannel on. All sorts of stuff. It's very What am I thinking of? Like lumberjack aesthetic, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a gentle mist on the horizon. Yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, I mean that's the rural life.
Yep. Yep. I actually, to sort of pivot us towards the video games a little bit, I had a great question from my boss last night, and I wanted to get your answer to this
Oh,
question.
yeah, sure.
So we were having the Friday bevs as you do, and he was like, if you could make a video game about any IP, what would it be? What would the IP be?
Oh, as in I get to like take the IP and do
Yeah, and make a
anything with
video
it.
game with it. Yep,
Mm,
the
God,
big one.
that's the first IP that came to my head was Silent Hill,
Oh yeah, that's
but
a
I
good one.
think that's just because we've all been denied what could have been, you know? So it's not that
Yeah.
I would want to make an IP, but I would just want to take that IP and give it to Kojima again, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and Del Toro, and just be like, be as weird as you possibly can, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like while I really enjoy consuming video games and criticizing them, actually trying to create an idea from scratch is
Yeah.
something that I'm not confident I'd be very good at.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a very like game dev central conversation, right? Like it's the sort of thing like you've been making games for a while and you're like, "Oh, like if you could grab one IP off the shelf, what would you make a game off?" And so I get that it's like you feel as though you don't have the qualification to pull it off or whatever, but I still
totally.
think it's like an interesting idea, right? Like my answer was Pokemon.
we've come
And
we've
then
come full circle in five
yeah,
minutes.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, hit me with your
Yeah, yeah.
Pokemon spiel.
Oh, there's not much to the spiel. It was like I just said the word Pokemon followed by an ellipsis, and then said a good Pokemon, and then that was that. And he loved that.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, now that you say Pokemon, I could think of a trillion ways to make that better.
Yeah.
And you know, just with my non-dev brain, you know,
Mm.
where I think of things and they come to fruition, not like, you know, project planning and then
Yeah.
like scaling it out to a large team.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Pokemon is a great answer.
And then we like for ages ago, you and I were talking about, oh, what if they redid Pokemon Snap? Like,
Oh yeah, and
and then
they
they
did
did.
that, didn't they?
Yeah,
Have you
they
played
did.
it?
I did. The problem that I had with it was that it was too slow. So in like the original Pokemon Snap, where like you would play a level pretty much twice, and then you would have everything you need from it,
Yeah.
unless you needed to really go back and like completionist the
Yep.
game.
Yep.
This one, it's like you really need to play every single stage like upwards of like 9 or 10 times before you can either progress or you progress the story or like get what you need. So there's like
Right.
day and night modes of each stage, and there's like specific events that can happen in each stage that are triggered by certain things, and
Right.
depending on what time of day it is, and there's all sorts of stuff. Like they really just went ham with it. But the problem is it's so slow. Like I think maybe it's a bit of a nostalgia thing. Shout out to the last episode where it's like um, the last game was also this slow, but there's something
Mm.
in the way that they've done this one that it just feels like so grindy. Like it's just not enjoyable to go out and take photos anymore.
Oh, that sucks. I like
Yeah,
I remember loving the first one as a kid, and then
yeah,
when we played it when you lived in Preston, that's
yeah,
like one of my favorite co-op experiences ever.
yeah,
Just, you know, having a few beers and playing through Pokemon Snap levels, like it was just really fun and
yeah.
harmless.
Yeah, totally. Very harmless indeed. Yeah, I think we should try it again, when you're all ready and feeling better and stuff, but
hmm
with the new one. But I
I'd
think you'll
love to.
see, yeah, dude, that'd be sick. I think you'll see like the kind of pay. It's not that the levels are slow, it's that you unlock them slowly and you unlock new things slowly. It just takes
Right.
forever.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Um,
Got
so
a
anyway,
progression problem over there.
they do have a progression problem, and also the oh, you know what? I think the Pokemon look good, but they just have. It's not as like exciting as I think it could be. Like they have such potential to just do wacky shit with the
Mm.
Pokemon in the levels and have them be like way more random, but they're so on rails. Like
Mm.
I know it's like, oh, you know where the Pokemon's going to be, so then next time around you're going to be able to take a great photo. But I think it's like with the online sharing and stuff like that the game has, it would be so cool if there was some random element and someone ended up with a great Gyarados picture or whatever, and they're like, oh,
Right.
no one else is
Yeah.
going to be able to get this because like this Gyarados like flew over my cart and it's just never going to happen again or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe
get what
that's
you're
too
saying.
promising.
Like, well,
Yeah,
there's, you know, there's only so much replayability in a game where everything is, you know, set out and kind of curated like that because
yeah,
it's like on rails already. So
yeah,
already the experience is is kind of in a tunnel, so to speak. And then if
Yeah.
everything is exactly the same every time you're on the rail, it's yeah. I mean, you're gonna get sick of things pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And then they had like in the original, it was so cool how you would like throw a like an apple at the Volt Orb and it would blow up the wall. And like it never
Yeah,
told you to do that expressly. It would just like hint,
yeah,
like you would see the Volt Orbs explode and then there's like a rocky wall over there. And it's like, put two and two together and like unlocks the next stage.
yeah, yeah,
I didn't notice much of that. Maybe I didn't get far enough into it, but that happened in like the second level in Pokemon the original one. So I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. And it kind of that mechanic carried across where you would have two things interact. Like you'd have
Mm,
like a Shelder or Cloyster interact with a Slowpoke, and it would become a Slowbro.
yeah,
You
all
know,
that stuff.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah,
and I feel like that's still pretty basic, but
yeah,
it at least keeps things engaging.
yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe I was hoping for more of like shout out to episode one, like an open world situation where you just have a camera and you're wandering around the world of Pokemon trying to get cool photos.
Oh, that'd be
Like,
great.
yeah,
But
there are similar like. Sorry.
no, you're right. I was gonna say we just imagine as soon as we say Pokemon open world, we just imagine a world so much more vibrant and full of
Yeah.
life than they're capable of producing.
I know. Well, not that they're capable of producing. I
They
think they have enough money that their capability is there, right? Like, oh my god, don't
no,
we're on
no,
it
we're
again.
not
We're
doing
back.
this. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. Abort,
You
abort.
hear the tone in my voice, that sort of like, what the fuck tone. That's just like, yeah, abort. Let's abort. Let's talk about the theme for this week's episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm down. So we're gonna talk about dying in video games.
I mean, the topic doesn't have in video games in the
Yeah.
title. It just says dying.
I mean, I'm quite happy to talk about dying IRL as well.
Yeah, I
It-
think we should. I think it's part of it.
oh my god! So, when I put this prompt together, what was the first thing you thought of?
The first thing that came to mind for me was well, just how ubiquitous it is, right? Like it's almost in every game that you play.
Hmm.
And it's like a central thing that's built into a lot of even game engines. So like in Unreal, there's just by default when you play like the starter level, I don't really know what to call it, the starter content level.
Hmm.
Even though there's nothing you can do in the game in the first person mode, if you walk off the stage, you die. Like
Right.
there's like a kill floor that's just in the world as a default. And
Yeah.
so when you think about like the sorts of games that people make based on the default situations that engines come with, it's
Hmm.
just like there's a death built in, like
Mm.
literally built in as a default. And I
Yeah.
think that's such an interesting way of looking at it. Like the fact that death is just a part of the world, a part of everything that you're going to make, pretty much.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I guess it's like, been so embedded going back to those arcade days, right?
mm,
Because in most video games you can lose, like in Pong you lost but you didn't die. But like in Asteroids and Space Invaders, like in those games you die, your little spaceship explodes.
mm,
And if you've got any sense of role player imagination, which you would have had to if you're a kid playing Asteroids every day, your team and your crew and you yourself would have died. So like I think it's kind of just been a video game legacy almost. And I mean the proof is in what you just said. Like I can't believe there's like an engine demo, and in the demo that shows off the engine you can die.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just there. I don't know about Unity if that has a similar situation, like in their default level or whatever.
Hmm.
But yeah, in Unreal, it's definitely there. Um, but yeah, I agree. Like if we go back to like arcade systems, like how it was built into pulling quarters from people's pockets, like the
Mm.
idea of dying is just like a super frequent thing as well that happens in games. Like it's almost in like popular media's interpretation of video games. You know, like, get out of the way, mom, you're gonna make me die. You know, like that idea of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then her, like, nonplussed response, like, "Oh, you're gonna die," you know. Like, I love that. It's so on theme as like a video game thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. It's like not being able to pause,
Mm.
which millions of people are experiencing right now with Elden Ring because you cannot
Yeah.
pause that game.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Uh,
Have you played any more? Speaking of Elden Ring, since you finished it?
yeah, so I've been like pendulating between Elden Ring and Loop Hero.
Oh, hell
Um,
yeah.
and man, I gotta say, and I've like since I finished Elden Ring, I've been on blackout. Like I haven't looked anything up or
Mm.
seen any videos or media or anything, but I've come out of blackout and looked at a few things, and man, I've got so many gripes that no one else has. Like
Yeah. Right.
I just think the game overall isn't actually that ambitious. Um,
Wow.
I
Okay.
I think the open world is huge, but I don't think as a game, especially compared to their previous lineup, I don't think it's that ambitious. And like
Oh.
I've been on here before talking about Ghost of Tsushima, and we talked about copying and pasting in open worlds. And
Mm-hmm.
man, Elden Ring has almost more copy paste than I've seen in any other game.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
every single boss is copy and pasted somewhere, except for the
Mm-hmm.
cutscene bosses. But even some of those, and soundtracks are copied and pasted a lot.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, the exploration is top notch, and like it's a really good game. Like I'm saying this, and I've got some gripes, but it is a good game. But man, there's just a lot of things I feel like they didn't implement well. I
Mm.
think I think the most obvious thing is the balance. I
Yeah.
think everyone is a glass cannon, including you. Like
Mm.
the enemies do way too much damage, and you do way too much damage.
Yeah.
And it just means most boss fights are over in like 30 seconds to a minute, and either you're dead or you've won. Like
Yeah.
even with the final bosses, like when I beat the game, I'd only used like 2 or 3 flasks
Yeah.
because the bosses basically kill you in one hit. So you either die or you beat them, and it's just
Yeah.
like I
It
don't.
feels more of a coin flip at that point.
Yeah, and I don't really like that design decision. And it's kind of like it shows in the lack of multiple health bars and that kind of thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
many of the bosses have multiple phases, but it's, a third of the way through the health bar, then they change, then another third, and then they change again. Very few bosses actually have more than one health bar.
Yeah.
And it just feels like it cheapens the fight
Mm-hmm.
because you do so much damage. Like there are some bosses where I've got the boss to like the second phase, and literally while the boss is transforming, I do enough damage to just completely skip that and go to the next phase.
Right. Yeah, that
And
sucks. You
and
don't want to
it's
see. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like I don't know why they made that design decision. It seems super super weird. And
Yeah.
like it's not just the bosses, it carries across to the areas that you find yourself in. Like I'm in an end game area right now, and I just killed like a mini boss, and I got 160,000 runes,
Runes. Yeah.
and that was a mini boss, and that's all well and good. But if I go out into the world, any of the enemies out in this area can one hit me, and I get like 6,000 runes for beating them, and
Mm.
it's just like has this been play tested? Like it's not fun to find out an enemy's move set by instantly dying.
Mm.
If you're on low health, fine, you deserved that. But in previous games, like in Dark Souls 3, you can have 30 vigor or vitality or whatever the health stat is,
Mm-hmm.
and medium armor, and the nameless king cannot kill you in one hit. But in this game, I've got 46 vigor and heavy armor, and every second enemy can kill me in one hit, and it's just
Yeah.
like, oh man, it's so unsatisfying, and that kind of ties into the dying side of this topic,
Yep.
where when dying feels unfair, or you just feel like you've been hitting your head against a wall for too long, that's when it becomes unenjoyable for me.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, oh, I think we should have a Elden Ring specific topic one week, right, where we just like go over. I think you mentioned it last time or whatever, doing like a spoiler cast.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Because yeah, I think the game definitely has late game issues, big time. And it's really hard, right? Like I think they have this balancing issue whereby you can level up a whole lot, right, in the world, and it's not
Hmm.
necessarily in a way like I remember in one of the first episodes we were saying how like, oh, you level up by not doing the main thing and going off and exploring, and that's neat.
Yeah.
And I agree, like while early on in the game, that is really like a cool utility to have.
Hmm.
But there's like you said, you killed a mini boss and got 160,000 runes. Like I think there's just like really weird situations where like they give huge amounts of runes as like a way to say, okay, now it's time for you to catch up. You know, like it's the part where you like get a bunch. Like I'm feeling the same thing right now. I'm in the capital,
Right.
and like I don't know, like 15 levels lower, like half an hour before I finished or like got done with the capital. You know, like
Right.
I leveled up
Yeah.
so fast by getting there because all the enemies gave me way more souls than I was used to, and I was like, what's going on right now? Like this isn't the same experience anymore. Like
Mm.
I didn't feel like I had to like fight for every level like I did before. I wasn't doing any grinding or anything either. Like I was just playing the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in this area, I felt like, oh shit! Like now, like, I just play from one bonfire to the side of grace to the next, and I just have two levels pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what's so weird?
It is weird, and it feels really different from the rest of their lineup. Like,
Yeah.
we talked about the issues that they were going to have with balance in an open world, but
Mm,
this feels like they've done a bad job. It,
mm,
it doesn't feel like they've had a crack at it. Like, it feels like they've done a bad job. And it's pretty unexpected because their track record for this kind of stuff within their games is so good.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, it is a bit of a weird experience. But for the most part, it is a really fun game.
Mm,
Um, I just think it's, on the whole, a watered down version of all their other games.
yeah.
When I think of the level design throughout Elden Ring, it's taken from the original Dark Souls, but I don't think it's as good. When I think of the environments, it feels like the environments have been taken from Dark Souls 3, but none of them
Yep.
feel as original or as good.
Yep.
Um, with Sekiro, I don't know what they learned from Sekiro, because Sekiro created what they did was they made quest lines much easier to follow, and they were still
Yeah.
cryptic, and you still had to work out, what characters might need, or whatever you needed to get to, get them on their way. But with this, it's just like,
It's
it just
so cryptic.
it's
It's
so
just
cryptic, and it's outdated, dude. Like, I don't know
yeah.
if they're running on the same engine, but speaking to a character three times, having to load out of the game and back in to see if they've moved, it's just, it I don't know. It really does feel like Dark Souls 3.5 with a horse. And and I don't think, I think it's fine, but I don't think it's ambitious.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Okay. yeah, let's dig into that more another time because there's so much meat on that bone, and I'm sure
Yeah,
once
that's
I
true.
get through with it, I think there's going to be even more meat on the bone. You know, like
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now, I feel like we're both chewing on the same end of your bone, but this is a
This
terrible
no,
analogy.
oh my god. Abort, abort, go back to the
Abort
Pokemon hate.
again. Yeah, back to Pokemon 8 where it's safe and there's no bones.
um,
Yeah, so but yeah, the dying in that game, and I think what is really cool that FromSoft do a lot. This is the FromSoft appreciation or like deprecation podcast now because the dying in Sekiro is like a really interesting mechanic that they added, right?
yeah,
So
yep.
it's all of a sudden you had two health bars now, pretty much, right? Like you
Yeah,
were,
yeah.
even though you were weak comparatively to a lot of the game, enemies in the game, you still had this ability to come back if you so chose, and like have another crack at it, and that gave you the chance to like get better at the bosses before having to run back and do it all again.
Yep, yep.
So that's really cool. I mean, other games that do death in an interesting way.
Oh, come on.
Well,
We got to give it to the MVP, Hades.
Hades, yeah,
Hades is one of the best games to die in because it's got this super tight gameplay loop where you have fun when you're out there, blasting through all the biomes, and then you die and you're taken back to the House of Hades, and then all this story unfolds. So it's got this weird kind of link with dying where you're like, oh, bugger, that sucks. And then you're like, oh, great, I get to, speak to Nyx and,
yeah.
go and speak to some gods and see what's going on and, try and hook up with Meg or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that game has this amazing pace, right? Where like it doesn't kill the run, or it does, but it doesn't kill your progress in the overall game by dying. It gets there. And it's not just strictly like, oh, you hold on to some mechanics or you hold on to some abilities, which you do, you also hold on to the story which progresses each time you die,
Yeah.
which is genius. I wish I liked that game more. I don't really know exactly what it is that repels me from that game, but
Oh, really? I didn't know
yeah,
you had an ailment.
yeah, it's not an ailment. It's not that I don't like it. I think I do like it. I just don't. Um, the moment to moment isn't enjoyable for me. The gameplay itself, like fighting,
Right.
yeah,
Oh,
and maybe
man.
it's just like roguelikes in general. Like I've always kind of I've enjoyed the concept of them and I like playing them for a little bit, but when it comes to actually like finishing them or like progressing through them, I just drop them. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Right. Oh, man. I'm the complete opposite.
I
I
know you
they
love them.
yeah, they really appeal to my addicted personality.
Yeah.
When when Hades came out, I was just, I must have played 100 hours that month as well as
Mm,
working a full-time job. Like it was
that's
just
sick. Yeah.
oh man, I just could not wait to go on the next run.
Mm,
And it 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 was just this I don't know, this like collision of Supergiant and their music and their
mm,
characters and their art and the gameplay. Like I love Transistor and I love the gameplay in Transistor, but man, Hades just feels so good to move around in.
yeah.
And the way they pace the biomes and the bosses, and then you beat the final boss and you unlock this like a scroll where you can make specific things harder,
Right.
and it's just the way they let you manage the difficulty and the challenge is awesome. It's so creative and you have so much license as a player to like enjoy it exactly how you want to.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe like that like my friend the orb friend. Shout out to Jetto. Um
Hello, old friend.
she yeah, hello orb friend. She plays it on the mode where when you die it gets easier, I think is what the mode is. I can't remember. It's
Oh,
like something
dude,
like that.
another great option. I think
Yeah.
it's called God mode or something, and like every
Yeah.
time you die, you get slightly more defense permanently.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like what I need because I think maybe that was part of what I was struggling with is I was just dying in the same boss again and again
Right.
and then I just struggled in the next area because it was just like exponentially harder for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um yeah. Um This is like that's an interesting thing to come up against, right? Like difficulty in video games, even though like I play a lot of video games, I'm not very good at them. and so yeah, it can get hard to like continue to enjoy them, especially with games that don't have a way to change the difficulty like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a topic in its own right because it
Yeah.
ties into accessibility and it ties into video game enjoyment. And
Mm,
Elden Ring is um, a great example of this, where you've got all these wankers that rise up, being like, "You're not playing it right. You use
mm,
summons. Did
mm-hmm,
you really beat that boss if you summon someone to help you?" And it's just like, shut the
mm-hmm.
fuck up. Like, did
Yeah.
you enjoy fighting that boss? That's the real
Yeah, yeah.
question. And your enjoyment might be summoning like five rats and getting two human players to help you and like
Yeah.
doing a gesture and sitting back and watching the fight. Like
Yeah.
that's a
That's valid.
valid way to enjoy the game. And so
Yeah.
I think like difficulty in video games and enjoyment in video games are intrinsically tied, and people confuse the two a lot on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think an example of that that's just like that really grinds my gears and like pauses my enjoyment of the game itself is Warframe.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's like my depression game. Like I love playing that while I'm down because it's just so checklisty and
Right.
in a
Yeah.
different way to Ubisoft. It's just an MMO that's just like get the next thing. These are the things you need to get the next thing, and off you
Mm,
go do some grinding.
yeah.
But yeah, there's like this community, which is a good community, and it means well. But they're so convinced that they all know the exact right way to play the game, every single one of them,
Mm,
and they love to tell
right.
you about how you're not playing the game the way that they play the game, which is the correct way to play the game.
Oh man. I
So
mean
like,
that
yeah,
sounds like
fuck.
the FromSoft crew.
Yeah,
Really.
they're very similar. Yeah, they are very similar.
I think, and it's hard because it's the internet, and maybe all these people are 13, and it just makes sense that you'd have those opinions when you're 13, you know. But
I think they're all 45, dude.
I'm trying to throw him a bone here, bro.
I know. Try to give them a chance, but no, I think they're all balding, graying, very sad, very lonely. Like, just yeah, I don't know, dude.
Savage.
I have just have no sympathy for these people.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I think, um, especially when it saps the enjoyment of others. You know,
Exactly.
if
So,
like you're coming up against a boss in Elden Ring or Warframe or whatever, and you have a really
mm,
hard time, and it's like the first boss, and you hire some help and you beat it, and you get that feeling of satisfaction. Like, who the hell are some 13 or 45-year-old people to take that away from you?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I was watching the Orb friend stream Warframe years ago, a couple of years ago now.
Oh yeah.
And of course, when you stream on Twitch, there's always going to be a gamer in the chat, right? There's some dude
Yeah.
who's like, "You're playing the game wrong." Like that happened. She doesn't do this specific type of jumping in the game, which is highly enforced. Like it's like very common thing to do in the game, and she just jumps normally, and it's like fine. You play the game however you want. Like if that's fun for you, play the game like that.
Bro, you're
This
friends
person
with
just like
someone who jumps normally? Ew.
well, in Warframe, it's yeah, I don't know. It's oh, fuck. Even saying it like that, it's like I don't know. But yeah, so he this person just kept on her about this thing, and I was just like, shut up, dude. Like just let people enjoy things. Let them. You're adding suffering to the world in such a really that's like an annoying way. That's just not. I hate it. I hate it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember being like that when I was young.
Yeah.
I just think it's a young thing or an immaturity thing. But when you say people are 45, that kind of scares me. But I don't know.
Oh look, I actually don't know how old they are, of course, but I just assume like I just have this image in my head, right, of the 45-year-old keyboard warrior.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're the more internet savvy one between us, so I'm gonna lean on your interpretation.
Okay, all right. Even though it scares you, lean on
But speaking of multiplayer games,
it. Bring it back. Bring it back.
um, I think frustration and dying in video games is one and the same in multiplayer video games, like Call of Duty and um, not Disney who make it, Blizzard, Overwatch,
Mm,
where like there is no difficulty setting or anything like that. It
right.
really is just about how accomplished you are, and hopefully these video games have some kind of algorithm that matches you against people of similar experience.
Yeah.
But in my experience, that hasn't
Doesn't
always
always
been the
happen.
case. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's especially so with games like Titanfall 2 that have smaller player bases,
Mm, mm-hmm.
especially now because you know I feel like Titanfall 2 goes through these waves. Like when it just came out, everyone was like, "This is the best FPS ever," and then no one knew about it, and then it kind of had
Yeah.
this resurgence a year
Yep.
ago. And everyone was just like, the servers are back. There's 16,000 players online. And again, 16,000 players is a lot for
Not.
Titanfall 2.
Yeah. But in the
Not for,
grand scheme of thing, it's not very many.
yeah, yeah, but
Mm,
it created this weird experience because when there was the resurgence, all the veterans were like, "Ooh, the game I love is back," and so
yeah.
it was really like you just have these people destroying you from across the map, and people like, "Oh, I love the idea, but man, like I don't feel like I have a chance to do anything."
Yeah. It's a huge problem, right? Like, same thing happens in games that even don't have this issue, like Apex Legends, same developer.
Yeah.
Whereby you have your main account, right, where you are your highest level, you're like plat 4 or whatever, like you've been grinding.
Hmm.
And then you have a Smurf account, which is just like, you know, level bronze, lower one or whatever,
Hmm.
like you just jump into a brand new account. But you have all the same skills that you have in your platinum account because you're the same player, but you just like get
Yeah.
matched with all these lower level players and you just wipe the map and you just get easy wins. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
fucking, like, just for you to have your little ego boost, you play your
Yeah.
Smurf account and, like, and then wipe the server.
All right, I've got a question for you then.
All right, hell yeah.
Is it the same thing when people do it in Dark Souls? So in the original Dark Souls, not the remaster, um, you were when you invaded or when you summoned, it was matched by level, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were level 10, you could get anyone from level 1 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you could, as an experienced player, beat that game on level 1, go and get all the most crazy gear,
Mm-hmm.
and come back to Firelink Shrine and invade people. And and
Mm-hmm.
and people still do that to this day in the original Dark Souls. I don't
Yep.
think they're able to do it in the remaster because there's not only a level matchmaking system, but a weapon matchmaking system. So
Oh,
like
wow.
if you've got like a +5 weapon, you can't match with anyone below like a +3, for example.
Mm.
I don't know what it is exactly, but it's something like that. And so there would be these videos in the community where people have just started playing Dark Souls, and then they get invaded and just completely destroyed, and they're like, "Was this part of the experience? Like, was that a real person?" And there's
Yeah,
this
yeah.
part of me, because the nature of Dark Souls is so punishing, where I really love that kind of thing where
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the
you've just
masochist in
started the
you.
game and you accidentally head to the catacombs first and you get
Yeah,
invaded and destroyed,
yeah.
and you're like, I've heard it was hard, but this is ridiculous. And I think there's something to that, but like if it sways people from actually continuing to play, then that's maybe not such a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't have to play the game online as well. Like you have the option there. You can choose to enjoy it one way or the other. Whereas games like Apex Legends, it's like, yeah, you have to play this game online. To play this game, it's an online multiplayer game. In the case of like Dark Souls invading, I think it's funny. Like I think it's
Yeah,
unique
it
in
is
that.
funny, isn't it?
Yeah, I love this idea of like a freshly newborn child like just coming into the world and then
I
You know,
know.
like Jesus with an AK-47 comes and like takes them out. You know, like that is such a wild image that I really like. I think that's fun.
Yeah,
But
why is that so attractive to us? Because I feel exactly the same way.
that's a great question. I don't know why that is so attractive or why that's so funny. Um, maybe it's because it's relatable. Like if anyone who's played the game is like, oh, I had this shit happen to me. Maybe I don't know. It's also funny just on the outset. You know, I don't know.
um, so there is a difference with Dark Souls though compared to say Elden Ring because the dying aspect is similar, and then with multiplayer, like the invasion aspect is similar. But
Mm-hmm.
with Elden Ring, they've removed the need to be human. In Dark
Yeah,
Souls, you needed to consume a humanity at a bonfire, and that's what activated the ability to summon or be invaded.
right.
So you had this choice. So you could be online and see messages and bloodstains, but
Yeah,
if you weren't human, then you weren't at risk of getting invaded. And I kind of love that idea where there's some risk reward where
yeah.
you've got to run to this boss and you're like, I'm having heaps of trouble, so I want to summon people to help me. I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
human, and then you get invaded on the way.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was first getting the platinum, that kept happening when I was trying to beat Ornstein and Smo, like all
Mm-hmm.
those years ago when I wasn't good enough to take them on by myself, and I didn't know that there's a quick way to get to them from the bonfire. And so
Oh,
I would become human, run from ages away, and just get invaded and destroyed, and be like,
oh,
"Oh my god!" But
yeah.
like I overcame eventually, and I got better at PvP, so it ended up okay. But it was just a really cool mechanic that again just gave the player a bit more license and a bit more choice. And haven't formed on an opinion on whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that that's now been removed with Elden Ring.
Okay. So what do you get with Elden Ring? You can just be invaded anytime.
Yeah, anytime.
Okay. See, I can't remember if we mentioned this in another episode, but I haven't been able to play Elden Ring online because I have now Type 3, and it just is not compatible with online play for Elden Ring.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I haven't had any people invade me. I can't be brought into other people's worlds. I can't have people come into my world at all for help. So I've had this slightly different experience because I prefer to play it where if I'm having trouble with the boss, I'll bring in some friends or whatever, or some
Yeah.
randos.
Yeah, well, we beat Nameless King together.
I know in the network test,
Yeah.
but
No,
yeah,
no,
they just
no.
changed it.
No, in Dark Souls 3, I mean.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, yes.
Ages and
Oh
ages
fuck
ago.
that guy. Yeah, I hated that boss.
But
Um,
dude, you beat him. I remember dying like towards the end, and like we were
yes,
on the phone or something, and you're like, I'm
yes.
doing it. I'm doing
I'm doing it. Yeah, I
it.
remember, dude. I remember it. I remember very clearly. Yeah, that guy sucked. But yeah, that having that ability is really nice. And seeing people play these games online, Dark Souls 3 or whatever,
Hmm.
and they have some friend or whatever who's just constantly being summoned in to help them play through the game. I really
Hmm.
like that. Like they can just be like, "Oh, watch out around this way," and
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
and they'll
Like,
just help them through, like shepherd them through the game, which is cool.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, dying.
We're shit at staying on topic today, but
Maybe it's the topic, maybe it's actually not the best of topics, but it is good to like launch us in other directions, which I like.
yeah, yeah. Look, I just pulled this topic out of a hat. To be honest, I wasn't that um, obsessed
No,
with it or anything. But
yeah, it is a cool topic. I mean, there are games where dying is also not a thing, right? Like we
yeah,
played Sonic and Mario Racing last weekend,
ugh,
and you don't die in that game.
no. I mean, that's a good example of where you die IRL.
Yeah,
Your
yeah,
your entertainment value dies.
yes, yeah, pretty quickly. And I was thinking about kart games as well. There's just been no kart games. I mean, there has been kart games, but none of them have been able to do what Mario Kart had done.
But like, there doesn't need to be kart games because Mario Kart it just services all of us in the
Everything.
way we want to be serviced. It's like Smash Bros. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I know there are other fighting games, and that's probably a very contentious statement, but for me, it's just like every other fighting game feels like you're walking through molasses compared to Smash Bros.
Mm, yeah,
And I'm glad that there are options for people, and when there are more options, the consumer wins, and I'm all about that. But like for me, there's just so much polish there, and it's at this stage with Ultimate where that game's a couple of years old, and like if they never came out with a new one, that'd be fine. Like that
yeah,
game's just gonna be good for ages, and I think
yeah.
Mario Kart is the same.
Um, I do agree with you to an extent. I think that there is actually room for a new kart racing game. I don't
Oh
know what
shit, here we
property,
go.
or
Here we
I
go.
don't know
Silent
if it
Hill Kart
should.
Racer.
Yeah. I don't know if it should have a property attached to it, or if it is just purely kart racing with some new IP, right? But
What kind of things do you think it needs then to kind of stand out from Mario Kart, or at least
right,
have the facade of
yeah,
being different
yeah, and being good,
and
like it
being
needs
good?
to be
Yeah,
able to be good.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions. I think Mario Kart does a lot of cool stuff.
Hmm.
But I think that there's totally room for more creativity in um the carts. Like the carts don't matter much anymore, They kind of did in Mario Kart 64. If you pick Bowser, you were heavier and slower. If you pick Yoshi,
Yeah,
you were fast, like all that sort of stuff. But now the carts don't seem to play much of a role.
that's a
Maybe,
good point. Yeah.
and so maybe there's like room for there to be some really cool um kart tuning stuff where like you pick a certain weight of character and then you build the kart around them.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
the carts themselves are also they felt really impressive, or not impressive. Like Bowser's weight in Mario Kart 64 was like actually it meant something. Whereas now I don't feel as impacted by getting hit by Bowser in like modern Mario Kart. It's just like, oh, whatever. It's pretty much the same as getting hit by another character. So I
Mm,
think like in
mm.
a new kart game, like having the ability to have like a kart that when it hits you, it's really detrimental, but like the steering is bad. Like there's all these like fun little balancing things that might be fun. I don't know whether they would be or not, but they might be.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what Mario Kart does next because for some reason, oh well, the reason is money, but they released Mario Kart 8.1 or whatever it was
Yeah,
rather
I
than
saw that.
Mario Kart 9. And Mario Kart 8 was such a big jump. It
Mm,
introduced the gliders, I think,
yeah.
and like
Yep.
zero G and going upside down. And it had all these cool mechanics where like running into someone at zero G gave you a boost.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that I just feel like there was
They've done it
this,
all. There's nothing
yeah,
left.
yeah,
Yeah.
there was this huge jump in creativity. And I was like, hell yeah, this is great now, but I wonder what they'll do next. And then, they did the Mario Kart Deluxe, I think it's called, and it's just the
Yep.
same thing but on Switch. And
Yep.
I think people are hanging out. Every
Yep.
Nintendo console gets a Mario Kart game, and sometimes they're innovative, like that GameCube one,
Double Dash.
Double
Hell
Dash.
yeah. I love Double Dash. I
Yeah,
love that game. That was sick.
yeah, great game, and really cool original concept where like you can have two characters, like two players on the same cart, and
Mm.
awesome and weird and different. And Mario Kart 8 felt like the same thing again in a different direction. And I just hope Mario Kart 9 is going to be different again, but I don't know how it could be improved, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know either. I mean, it's not my realm of expertise, like racing games aren't really like where I
Mm,
go to, enjoy myself. I was just thinking about Mario Kart because it's on the list of like games where you don't die. Then I was like, I
mm,
kind of feel like playing Mario Kart. Like, what's it doing? And I saw that they released a bunch of new tracks or something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. The Mario Kart's always kind of been in my life. Always just been there.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Well,
weird?
yeah. I mean, I think it's just one of those Nintendo staples.
Yeah.
And for me, when you have a franchise in your life like that, it's kind of like getting tattoos like I've got a bunch of tattoos, and I just look at them sometimes, and I remember what my life was like when I got them, and I
Yeah,
feel
right.
like when you look at Mario Kart Double Dash, you can remember what life was like when that game came
Yeah,
out, and
yeah.
what school was like, and all that kind of stuff, and I feel like Mario Kart Wii played a big part in the
Oh,
like
yeah.
start of our relationship, because it was just it took over the house that we lived in,
Yeah.
for
I
the
remember
better.
Dom coming around and just like screaming at Mario Kart with us. That was sick.
Yeah, like we
Yeah.
just had so much fun with it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like these stamps that, just remind you of what life was like at that point in time.
Yes. That is a very beautiful way to look at it, dude. Here I am, like, we need something different, like sick of this fucking Mario shit. We need something new. And then you're like, yeah, but but they stamp your life in at meaningful time. Yeah, that's actually great. I really like that.
Oh man. Speaking of games where you can't die but are
Mm.
equally meaningful, games like Animal Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like I think the biggest difference in games where you can't die and games where you can is like an exhilaration. So I find Mario Kart pretty fun despite the fact that you can't die.
Yeah.
But like Animal Crossing is not that fun for me, but it
Mm-hmm.
it serves another purpose. Like it's a wind down game. It's really satisfying. It's social. Like I think
Yeah.
I've got like 200 hours in that most recent
Yeah.
Animal Crossing, and I don't regret any of it. And I wasn't like going around having a blast. Like
Yeah.
a lot of that game is annoying interactions, like building a river and making a mountain and all that shit is a pain in the ass. Like it's not very user friendly at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
despite that, it's just this nice relaxing time where there's not really any stress, or there's no focus on doing something, under a time limit
Yeah.
or anything like that. And I think that's a really good example of a game where it doesn't have dying in it. It definitely doesn't need dying, but it still serves this purpose.
Yeah. To sort of pivot off that a little bit, I reckon so I can't remember if I told you about this, but do you know the way of playing Pokemon called Nuzlocke? Have I told you about this before?
Yeah, yeah, I've played a Pokemon doing a Nuzlocke run.
Oh, you've done a Nuzlocke run. So that's
Yeah.
really cool, right? Like you take a mechanic in a game where Pokemon faint, and instead of fainting, they die, and you never get to use them again. You bury
Mm,
them.
yeah.
And that's really cool. Like self-imposed challenges where death is final is something that sort of I played on my mind, and I chatted with a few people at work about.
Right. Yeah. Well, the Nuzlocke run I did was on Pokemon Sword,
Yeah.
because I was trying to find meaning in that game. And
Here we go again, baby. Get the
and
boxing gloves out.
and like I know it's a kids game, but the first time I played, I just walked through that game. There was zero
Yeah.
challenge in that game, and I did the Nuzlocke run to um create more of a challenge,
Yeah.
and I was going through that doing my run, and I just had to keep introducing more and more Nuzlocke rules to
Right.
to
Because it's
make it
still too
hard.
easy. Oh my
Yes,
god.
so like the Pokemon fainting one, I think is the most basic one,
Yes.
and then um, the Pokemon you beat a gym with, you have to release.
Yep.
So like you can't rely on having a strong Pokemon, just putting all your effort
Yeah.
into a strong Pokemon.
Yeah.
Those were the two main ones, and I think like once I implemented that gym one, it became like a little bit harder. And I was like, all
Yeah.
right, this is kind of where it's at. But the self-imposed challenge, especially around permadeath, I think that creates the exhilaration I was talking about.
Yeah.
There's so much more at stake. Like if
Yeah.
this Slowbro is my dude and he's on low health, suddenly it matters. Other,
Yeah,
it just doesn't really
it
matter that
does.
much
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's interesting that a lot of the times where it feels like it matters isn't built in, or some of the times, like in the case of Nuzlocke, it
Mm.
isn't built into the game. You know,
Yeah.
like that Skyrim run through that I did, where I was like, oh, the when I die, I'm dying. I'm never gonna play Skyrim again. You know, like I made it so that it actually had stakes.
Right. And that, that actually got me to play Skyrim. And
Yeah,
I've only played it for 2 hours because I did a
the
permadeath run.
same thing.
I played
Yeah,
it for
yeah,
2 hours and then died, and I was like, that's it. And I've never
yeah,
played it again.
yeah,
And
yeah. Fair enough.
but it created this desire to play. I was like, "Oh, actually you know, that sounds really interesting to me."
Yeah,
I'd seen you play it before, and then when you're like, "I'm doing a permadeath run," I was like, "Permadeath, eh?" Like
yeah.
that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's exciting as well. And then there's games that actually have it built in. So there's a game called Escape from Tarkov, which is like a first-person shooter. It's like heavy on the military stuff. Like you need to know what ammo types to use and what ammo goes in what magazine and what magazine
Oh,
goes in blah 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 blah. You know, like
wow.
it's just super deep.
Hmm.
It's basically like a military sim. But the cool thing in that game is you have your PMC, they're called, which is like your main guy.
Hmm.
You load them up with all the gear that you've collected or bought from the various vendors in the game, and you go out into a raid. And in the raid, there's like 12 other players or something like that, or eight or something, and a
Hmm.
bunch of scavengers, and they can be either AI driven or player driven. And so you're in this huge map, right? It's like almost like an open world, almost.
Right.
And it's like in a setting. There's like a train station one, or there's like a shopping center one, and you go and you try and kill the other players and also collect loot that's around the stage that's kind of randomly generated a little bit. And however, but if you get shot and die, or you die some other way, you lose that stuff. All of the stuff that you had on that character is gone forever. You can't get it
Right.
back.
Right.
And also, your character goes down to really low health, and you need to sort of heal them up to get them back.
Right. Okay.
So there's like big time consequences for dying in that game. And so as a
Yeah.
result, in a raid, if you like find some really expensive stuff, like a really cool gun, or you kill a bunch of people and loot all their stuff, you're like, oh, I'm going to be able to sell all this stuff for so much money, and then you have to get out. Like the whole point of the game is escape from Tarkov. You get out of the
Right.
stage by going to these specific escape points. Suddenly, it becomes really important for you to not die. Like,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
lose all of this stuff, some other person's going to get it. Like
Yeah, that's
I spent
cool.
I spent half an hour farming all of this stuff, and now if I get chased down, it's very serious. And so yeah, that I really like that idea. Even though the game is not for me, I like the concepts in that.
Yeah. Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like in games where dying creates stakes, I think that's where most of my enjoyment in video games lie for me.
Mm,
I think when you're going to lose a bunch of runes, or,
hmm
it works the other way as well. So if you're going to gain a bunch of stuff for
mm,
doing like a specific challenge, I think that's really engaging as well.
yeah,
But there's, I've got this problem where when games aren't hard enough, I just become disinterested.
yeah, right.
So after you recommended Slay the Spire, and I beat that on Ascension 20, which is extremely hard and
Yeah.
very satisfying.
Uh-huh.
You put me onto Monster Train, and Monster Train has all these cool mechanics, and it's innovative in a lot of ways. But that game is just so easy.
Yeah.
Like it has the an equivalent system to the Ascension system. I can't remember what it's called, but like there's 25 difficulty levels,
Yeah.
and it works the same way where if you beat it on one difficulty level, you just go to the next one. And I just did, I'd never played that game before, and I just did like 15 of them in a row.
Yeah.
And I was like, this game, like because there isn't enough difficulty here, it doesn't force me to experiment or try new things. Like I'll try something that works, and if that works, hell yeah.
You just carry it
Like
all the way to the end.
I just carry it over and over again, and like I
Yeah.
think there is some kind of stubbornness on my part there, where I'm not trying new things. But like,
Oh, look, if it works, it works. Like that's human behavior, man. Like if you have the way to do it and it is like you say, if it works, it works. You know, like there's no reason
yeah,
to try anything else. That's bad. It's not bad design, but it's poor design. If there is not, if they don't change it in such a way that makes you want to change what you're doing.
yeah, and I guess playing Bioshock on hard, that's a
Hmm.
great example of having to use all the tools at your disposal to like take down a big daddy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I love the way when you can kind of put your trust in a developer like that, where you just get funneled into this challenge. And when you take out a big daddy, you get so much shit. Like you get
yeah,
ammo and upgrades and all kinds of stuff.
yeah. The
And
reward is there.
yeah, and it just, I don't know, that kind of high stakes reward based gameplay is where it's at for me personally.
Yep. And then the other one that I had to bring along was oh fuck, what's it called? Hunt Showdown, which
Oh, I don't know that one.
oh man, if ever we get to a point where we don't know what to play on Sundays with Damo, we should get Hunt.
Oh
It's on
yeah.
sale.
Oh cool.
It's not the best console experience, but on PC it's fantastic. It's like similar to Escape from Tarkov, right? Where you go into a raid, there's like 8 other players, 12, something like that.
Hmm.
You can go in solo or duos or as a group of three. And the idea is you need to hunt down a boss. The boss monster is like some, swampy badass creature. Like there's a big meathead one, which is like he's got a cleaver.
Hmm.
There's like a giant spider, which you would hate. There is,
I would love to kill it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, the way it moves around is so gross. And
Oh
then
no.
there's like a scrap beak character, which is like this sort of hoarder witch lady who like her back is covered in items, and as you shoot her, they drop off. But she also throws like, but it's awesome. She's cool. And then there's another one as well. Oh, the assassin. There's like those main bosses.
Hmm.
And after you beat the boss, it drops the bounty, which is just like a little token which you pick up, and that gives you effectively wall hacks, like very loose wall hacks, so you
Hmm.
can see through walls
Yeah.
for like 5 seconds.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and you choose when the 5 seconds happen. So you can spend half a second here or 1 second there, or all of
Oh
your five
yeah.
seconds all at once. You
Yeah.
just press a button.
Yeah.
Um, and all the time that you're fighting the boss, the other players can come and try and stop you from fighting the boss or kill you, or also fight the boss as well and just get engaged in the situation.
Right.
Um, they can wait for you to kill the boss, take the bounty, and then shoot you and take the bounty and leave. Um,
Oh.
and the cool thing that how all of this relates to death is your character, once you extract with the bounty or without the bounty, if you just leave, you maintain the gear that you picked up in that level, and you also maintain the level. So your hunter goes up in level every time you extract after having done some stuff in the
Hmm.
game,
Hmm.
and you can give them traits. So you buy traits with these points, like you basically experience points,
Right.
and they're
Yep. Yep.
they're, they're really cool things. Like you can res a teammate through a wall, or you can move faster through water. Like you slow down substantially on the water in this game.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, you can fire a bolt action rifle without taking your eye away from the scope when you pull the trigger. Like there's all sorts of like little um, traits which change the way that you play the game. And by like if you extract 2 or 3 times with a hunter, they're like this badass. They got all these traits. They've seen some shit, you know, and they
Yeah.
become like this valuable thing in your roster. Like you've got a roster of like 5 or 6 hunters, and some of them are high level, and some of them are newbies. And
Right.
so like yeah, it's this really cool balance where you're like, oh man, last hunt of the night, I'm gonna take my like highest level guy out there, and then if we win, I get to retire him, and when you retire, you get a bunch of experience points
Right. Right.
for your overall account, and you get new gear with those experience points. Yeah, it all shakes out in a really interesting balance of like time spent in the game equals enjoyment, and also equals like progressing your overall um, loadout of stuff.
Dude, that's the calculation right
Yeah,
there. Like where time spent in the game equals enjoyment and progression. And
yeah,
and that might be um, the highest accolade that I would give Hades for
yeah,
me
yeah,
personally. Like that really gets the blend perfect.
yeah.
And and you kind of also touched on something around how video games like online video games communicate to other players that this player has seen some shit.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool concept where you summon someone in Dark Souls or something, and they've just got the most outrageous looking armor and weapons, and you're like, holy shit! All right,
Yeah. Yeah.
this boss is going down. Or you play an online shooter and someone's in bright pink or something. You know that person is gonna fuck you up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it definitely. There's like legendary hunters in Hunt, which are paid for with premium currency or money.
Hmm.
And like sometimes you see someone rocking like the most ridiculous, weird looking legendary hunter, that's like a redneck and he's got a literal target painted on a hay bale that's strapped to his chest. Like it's just it's so silly.
That sounds great.
But it's also very good.
I'm keen on that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very tense. Like it's quite they have this amazing audio in the game, like 3D audio. So
Oh
anything
yeah.
that you do makes sound. And so it's really about hunting. Like you hunt the other players, the other players hunt you all through sound. And there's like sound traps in the level. So like there'll be like a dying horse on the road, and as you approach it, it starts neighing really loud.
Oh,
And
that
so you
is
need to like put it out of
awesome.
its misery or like run away. Or there's like crows, and the crows are a really beautiful mechanic, right? So like if you approach the crows, they start making a noise, like a very sort of quiet, flustered noise.
Hmm.
And then if you get closer, they get a little bit louder, and then if you get close enough, they'll fly off. But the cool thing about the way that they fly off is they fly off in the direction that you approach them from. And so if you see, if you look out over the horizon, over some trees, and you see some crows flying in a direction, you can follow that direction of the crows that were flying, and you will be able to
Oh,
intercept enemy players. Yeah.
I love that.
It's very good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh man, and it makes me want to talk about mechanics in video games that just like give you the good feelings.
Yeah.
Like where when you see something like that or you hear about something like that, you're like, "Oh, someone put so much thought into it." Like that's such a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Hunt's one of those games where like it's so good, but I feel like it's just missing. It has like such high potential. So like those monsters that I mentioned, that's it. There's no new monsters. That those are the bosses that you fight. They never bring out a new one. And I'm like, what if they had like monster of the month? Like they brought. It doesn't even have to be like a compulsory thing. Like if it breaks the game or like makes the game unbalanced or they're too hard or too easy or whatever reason,
Mm,
you don't even have to engage with that. You can just play the core set of monsters that work. But if you really want to play the new monster, you can.
mm,
Um, or like the ability to have an actual hub. So in Escape from Tarkov, you have your what's it called, hideout, and
mhm.
the hideout is like there's nothing there. It's like blank walls and broken stuff. And as you bring stuff back from raids, you can like improve the toilet, which changes how your character is hydrated in the game. Like there's all these little systems happening that as you play the game, you get to upgrade these things in your hideout and improve the way your main character functions. And
Yeah,
so,
okay.
like, if Hunt had something like that, like a Hunter's Lodge, like this shit writes itself, man. That's why I'm so like disappointed. Like, if there's like a Hunter's Lodge and you brought back X amount of, zombie teeth or something, like
Uh-huh.
some
Uh-huh.
asset from the world, you
Yeah.
could build a charm which would help you do XYZ, like reload this specific type of gun faster or something.
Yeah, dude, and this shit doesn't write itself. That's all you, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, this goes back to that first question you had around if you could take an IP, what would you do with it? It's like
Yeah.
if someone else can take an IP and then give me something half finished, that's where I'm good.
Yeah, right.
I can take something and make it better. Like I'm all about
Yeah.
optimization. And
Yep.
that's where I sit with Elden Ring, you know?
Yeah, right.
When I play Bloodborne or Hollow Knight, I'm like, I cannot optimize this game any further. This game is
This
perfect.
is
It
better.
does
Yep.
everything it needs to do, and I couldn't think of any of this shit originally anyway. But
Yep.
like with Elden Ring, I'm like, man, there's a bunch of basic shit in here that they just didn't think about, like the Great Runes. All right, and I don't want to rant for too long because we're already over time. But
Yeah.
the okay, so you beat a big bad, right? You get a
Hmm.
cutscene, you kick that boss's ass, and you get his like I don't know, it's like a memory of a great rune, or it is a great rune, but
Yep.
it's not activated yet. And you read the description, and it's like you got to go to this place to activate it. So you go through all this bullshit and you go up the tower, and to activate a great rune, they're in all these huge towers, and the elevator takes like 30 seconds, and it's epic. You know, it's
Hmm.
like the scale, the sense of scale is amazing. They
Yeah.
knocked it out of the park again, and you get up there and you're like, oh man, what's this great rune gonna do? And it doesn't do shit. All the great runes suck. They're like, you want a bit more health? Oh, this one gives you health and stamina. And it's like, dude, you could have tried just a little bit harder, and they could
Yeah.
have been like these creative things, you know, just like you were saying. This is kind of the equivalent of like, you know, going out on a mission or whatever, bringing an asset back from the world. But
Hmm.
like, do you really care about 10% more health? Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of this crux of RPGs from 10 years ago, where you do 10% more damage with a light weapon, 13% more damage
Yeah.
with a heavy weapon, and all that
Yep.
stuff sucks. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
meaningful. If it was like, you know, you were granted a special ability where you could hover for 2 seconds, you know, I don't know how that would change your interaction with the world, but it would change something. Like, having
Yeah.
10% more health doesn't change shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying. Yeah, I think games really, especially online games, really struggle with this. Like they say,
Mm,
Warframe's a prime example, where you'll get like um, an upgrade. I can't remember what they're called. Some way to upgrade your character, and it's like 2.25% more heat damage on this sword after you've been knocked down. You know, like there's all of these like
it's
it's
like a
like
parody of itself at that
it
point.
is, it really is. And the mods in this game in Warframe are like the whole reason that you play. Like you change the way that your Warframe functions by changing out what mods it has on it, which is like a cool system.
Right.
But it just really falls into this trap of like some of these mods, man, are just like no one has any use for this. You know, it's like 30% more ammo on a reload after you've killed an enemy or whatever, you know, or after a headshot. It's like,
Mm,
oh my god, like this, there's no purpose for this. And yeah, I agree. Like in Elden Ring, that is for beating a boss as well, getting 10% extra health is just like so mediocre.
yeah, yeah. And it's weird because they've already got a system in place that they've had in place since the dawn of time, where you like take a boss soul, right? Because you beat the boss and
Yeah,
you go and make it into this epic weapon or shield or spell.
yeah,
Or you can consume it for like heaps of souls or runes or whatever.
yeah.
And like, that's great. That's meaningful. And then they had the forethought to be like, man, we can add something more that ties into the lore. Like, you know, the two fingers are connecting with this greater entity. And if you take, you know, the remnants of this shard bearer to that entity, then it activates something, like it activates a dormant power. But that
Mhm.
power is boring as hell. And it's like, am I really to think that, like, the power that made this demigod so great was 10% more health? You know, like, it's like they had the first thought to do it, and then after that they just like gave it to some stoned intern that really wanted to do graphic design but was like stuck there, you know,
Doing
creating.
balance, crucial
Yeah,
balance
yeah,
for like the game where balance is the prime thing that it hinges on. Yeah.
exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. I know, dude. I know. There's a lot of that. I feel like as people who consume games, I don't want to say gamers, right? I hate the idea of being a
Gamers.
gamer. Yeah, that.
But you are a gamer, Joe.
Yeah, I know. I can't handle it. I don't want. Listen, we can't end it with me being a gamer. That's the worst. But as
uh,
someone who consumes this type of media, there's there's like this insight that we have, right? And that like some studios do really make a good go at listening to their players
mhm.
and making changes based on input.
Right.
There's
It's
like specific studios that will do, you know, like I can't remember. I think it's Blizzard, which is not the greatest of studios, but they have like a name for it. You know, like they're our community heroes or something. You know, like they have like a program in place where they basically pay them some, not a wage, not with money, but some resource in the game, which helps which gives them a reason to want to help as well.
Right, I see.
Yeah. So it's out there. People are listening, but it's a hard thing to balance.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
as a dev, when I was working on Puzzle Quest, the amount of shit that just comes in from every single angle, it's so like
Mm,
it actually becomes a dev problem, like a problem that needs to be solved by someone on the team to collate all of the feedback
yeah,
and
like it's
organize it.
a new job in itself just to be
Yes.
able to like process it.
Yes, yes.
Mm,
So it's, the minute that you start listening to community feedback, it's like, oh, now there's 30,000 voices and they're all so loud and they all say that the game is broken for different reasons. You
mm,
know, like, and it's just like, well, fuck, what, which ones do we listen to and how do we organize this data and how old is this data is another thing. Like, I remember
mm.
bringing this up in a meeting that I was sitting in on with the community. I don't know why I was in the community meeting, but I was. And we were talking about data, and I was like, yeah, this data is useful right now, but if this is game breaking still in 6 months' time, we need some way in this specific spreadsheet to say, okay, this age, the age of the data is also a crucial like point to the
Yeah,
data.
definitely, definitely.
So yeah, there's all sorts of things that come into this idea of like, oh, you just fix it by doing this. It's like, yeah, sort of,
Yeah, well, I wonder how much interaction there is with the community for feedback before release.
Yeah,
Like it's really common in the movie industry to have pre-screenings for audience reactions, and
yeah,
historically, these reactions have changed the endings of movies.
yeah,
That like the audience goes in and they're like, yeah, the movie was great, but the ending sucked, and like the producers will actually take it on board and say to
yeah,
the writers and the director, you need to change this.
yeah.
And I can't think of any examples right now, but every now and again when I'm reading through like IMDb trivia after a movie, I'm not watching the original ending. Like I'm watching an
Yeah,
ending that
some other
changed due to
ending.
feedback. Yeah. And I just wonder,
Yeah,
like within video games, does that exist? Do you get a bunch of people into a studio
you
and have
do,
them
you
play the
do.
game? Right, right, right.
Yes, yeah. So there's when I was working on Puzzle Quest, there's actual companies that are run to support this. So they have
Mm,
they're not like game testers. They don't call themselves testers. There's some other word for it that's like, they basically get a bunch of people in supposedly from a broad spectrum of the target audience, and they give them the game and they give them some information, and then they play it and they record the whole thing. So they'll have
right.
like cameras at their face and cameras at the iPad that they're using or whatever they're using,
Hmm.
and then they collate all the data and put it into different spreadsheets and graphs and show off where people had issues. And these companies specifically pride themselves on being like, we capture a broad range, like we capture all sorts of different data here.
Right,
And they
right.
try to give it to you in a way that's like visually able to be passed, so that you can action it.
Yeah.
So it's good, but it's also like it's only like 50% useful, which is a weird thing to say, right? Like it's only 50% useful because a lot of the time the people who are playing the game haven't played the game before, so they're not familiar with like late game issues, for instance. And so like there's all sorts of things that need to be taken into account with testing. Like
Yeah, I
you
mean it's
can't.
it's sorry, go on.
Oh, I was going to say you can't really play test Elden Ring just from the start every single time.
I was
You know?
about to say, getting
Yeah.
someone in to watch like a 2.5 hour action movie is very different from like
Yes.
getting someone to come in and try and understand the scope of like a potentially 120-hour game.
Yes. Yeah. So what you end up doing, and this is where a lot of the problem lies with a lot of these games and balance, is you build a character for them based on, a whole set of parameters. You say, okay, they're going to play a paladin, for instance, or whatever, a knight, and they're going to have XYZ stats, which we've seen are pretty common for people who play the game up to this point and have chosen this character.
Right.
Um, and then they go off and they play the game from X amount of hours in,
Mm,
supposedly, with all of this progress.
yeah.
Which was sort of like what the network test was, right? Like there were spells that were unlocked that were super high level, and they just wanted to get like a read on the way people would use those spells and what sort of situations and if they were
Yeah.
still useful or fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And then it jumping into the main game felt very different. Like,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, oh wow, it is. They have changed things. I totally expected for it to be exactly the same.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. They do all sorts of funky stuff with tests to get information, but like I said, the problem is it's only 50% useful because it's not the player's true experience, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they are picking up at some point, and it's so hard. So there's interesting work being done in this area with AI. So they'll
Oh yeah.
have machines trained to play the game in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
and this is more specifically around like bug testing and stuff like that, not
Mm-hmm.
specifically like player enjoyment. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really cool. Like you can program an AI to like play the game and like do specific things and look out for when there's like a game breaking bug where the player can't like once they go down this elevator the game doesn't load or something. So like
Mm,
instead of having
yeah.
to pay like a team of 50 testers, 50,000 testers, you can say, okay, AI, play this game 50,000 times and off you
Mm,
go. Like
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
genius. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Stuff that I don't understand how they do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh
should
man.
we wrap it up? We've gone well over time today.
Yeah, we're well over. Let's wrap things up with a one-off lightning round question.
Okay.
And I feel like this is a question that like only video games where you die make you want to do this, but
Yep.
when has dying in a video game made you want to throw your controller across the room? Or if it's applicable, when has dying in a video game made you throw your controller?
Oh boy. Um, I have a few different memories of playing games where I have like actually thrown my controller onto the couch or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember what games they were. They were probably the Dark Souls games, or whatever. But I remember playing Smash Bros at your place, and JT just like beat me one time, and I got so mad. Threw my controller on the floor. Yeah, that was a real ride.
Yeah, I mean, JT's very good at elevating the amount of abrasiveness in the atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He sure is. I think after that point, I was like, I think I'm not gonna let him get to that point again. Where he's like that far under my skin. I don't mind a little bit of JT under the skin, if you know what I'm saying. But like, it's yeah, you got to know where to cut it, cut the influence.
Totally. That's a great answer.
What about you?
Um, I've got two very clear memories where I
Mm.
I threw the controller. Like once when I was a kid, I was at the Banjo Kazooie final boss, and I now know that if you like collect all the feathers, or if you collect all of one of the items, you get two whole health bars.
Oh
And
wow.
when I was a kid, I didn't know that, and I was versing the boss with just one health bar, and man, I just got so close to beating Grunty or Gruntilda
Hmm.
or whatever her name is, and I lost, and I like threw my Nintendo 64 controller and it broke, and I
Oh
started
no.
crying. I was, I
The
was
game of
very.
tears.
Oh, the gamer tears were real, like the
Yeah.
8-year-old gamer tears, and I remember
Yeah.
like going to some electronic store with my mum, and the guy was like, "Did you throw this controller?" And I was like, "No." Like
Oh.
I didn't
Oh.
want to admit the shame was too
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it
that
is a shameful thing. It sucks, like it's such a bizarre response, like throw the controller, like that's such a I don't know.
well, I mean, it's just your anger getting the better of you, and
Yeah,
that's not good to see in
that's
anyone.
bad. I know,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway, I
Um
was hoping to wrap this podcast up by saying, hey, if you guys if y'all have any counter arguments to us just yelling our opinion for an hour and a half, you can send us an email at it'salmosttheweekend@gmail.com. But
oh, you made an email.
someone's already taken it's almost the weekend at Gmail.
Ah,
And
oh dear.
and I was hoping it was you, but it doesn't sound like it is. And
No.
so we need to make an email so we can you know give everyone a chance to give us new topics, or just be like, you guys are so wrong.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's totally the
Dude.
voice I'll read it in if you call us out on our bullshit.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. I was thinking the exact same thing on the train while I was listening to our first episode.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's I'm sure multiple times in that episode and all episodes we like say some stuff and it's like completely wrong. Like just
Yeah.
fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, no,
So please.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that these first few episodes, there's no way for them to contact us though. Like we just get to throw all this bullshit out there, and there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we're like it might be a peek behind the curtain, but we are recording these ahead of time. But yeah, there's something nice about not having to have any real consequences. Like when I do a tweet or whatever, it's like like 2,000 people, whatever it is, how many people follow me see it, and it's like oh god, like this is like potentially out there now, but this is like I got a few weeks before this hits the world. That's not.
I'll
It's
have
so weird the
forgotten
way.
about it.
Yeah, the way humans are like they can't see past the immediate, day or whatever. They're just
Oh,
like,
totally.
we don't care about XYZ thing because it's so far in the future.
That's a problem for tomorrow's Joe.
Exactly. Yeah, next week's Joe, you'll think about it then. And then
Yeah.
it'll be it might be a problem.
All right. So our promise to you is that we will find some web address that isn't taken and give you all the ability to send us an email. Maybe we can use an acronym or something. Anyway, we'll work that out off the air.
Yeah, there's stuff to figure out. And I think there actually might be, if it's on Apple Podcasts, you should be able to leave comments on the show, like review the show, which
Oh
I don't think you
boy.
can do on Spotify. But
Oh
yeah, if you
man.
want to even put your questions there for now, or whatever, if you have stuff to say, put it there.
Yeah. Or review
I will
bomb us.
eventually get to
I
it.
would love that. I would love randoms just to be like, these two guys don't know what they're talking about. Like I would love
We
that.
look, there's part of me that's like, oh god, it's like two dudes in their 30s starting a podcast. It's like we have nothing to say, we really don't.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't like acknowledging that. I want to just leave it. Like
Like, yeah, if you acknowledge it, some part of you that you want to keep down beneath the rest of your unstable emotions
yeah.
will burst out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just gonna set that in a little box to the side. We have heaps to say, clearly. So
Yeah.
until next week, I reckon have a great weekend. Is that how we sign it off?
No, we'll see when it's almost the weekend again. But I mean,
That's
why
it.
can't people have a great weekend? That's another great sign
Both.
off. We don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my
both.
sign off.
Both. All right. Bye bye.
Goodbye.